It's Retro Podcasts with your host, Retro Lion. We talk music, entertainment, films, and more. And now, here he is, live, Retro Lion.
Welcome back to Retro Podcast. I am the host, Ben Sina, and today we have Lucy Jane Quillen with us, and she is an actress from the UK. And Lucy, it's great to see you. Welcome to Retro Podcast.
Thank you so much. It's exciting. Thanks for having me.
So, what's the weather like in the UK at the moment?
Do you know what? It's surprisingly really... Well, I just looked out the window. I was going to say it's really nice, but the trees are blowing around. So it's okay. It's been nice, and I've actually been in Spain. So I've managed to pick up like a fairly okay-ish tan. But yeah, it's okay. It's not terrible.
Spain is on my list to travel to. Haven't been yet, but it's on my list.
Please go. Like, it's so gorgeous, and everything is so cheap. So we went to the store and bought like a bottle of wine, a couple of cans of beer, some crisps, some snacks, and it came to like 10 euros or something. So yeah, go.
Yeah. Well, it's the same way in Canada as well.
It is? Is that cheap?
It is. It is in Canada. Well, some places no, but from what I've heard, it's the same way in Canada.
Well, I went to Canada once for a film festival, and I was like, this place is expensive, but that was like Toronto, so maybe, right?
It must have been the Toronto area then.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Toronto. The only place I've been to in Canada is Vancouver. But it's probably the next stop I'm going to be traveling to. It's either going to be Ontario or Montreal, but it's probably going to be Ontario.
Oh, it's so huge though, right? It takes ages to get anywhere.
Yeah. That's how it is nowadays, unfortunately. But it's not when you're lucky enough to live in Ohio, it's not very expensive, especially when you're like 45 minutes to an hour away from the border.
Sure. I get that.
Yeah. And so what were you doing in Spain, if I'm allowed to ask? Was it vacation? Was it movie or?
It was vacation. Yeah, I had I'm really bad at booking vacations because you never know when something's going to come up, and you never want to miss that opportunity. So I booked it, I think, about like 4 days before we went away with another freelance friend of mine. She's a dancer, and we just said, right, we've got a week. So like, hopefully nothing's going to come up. But I always say to my agent, like, if anything big comes up, just call me. I'm like an hour and a half away. But yeah, it was just sun, sea, sand, and it's just lovely.
Is filmmaking traveling is something is that what you're into? Is that what you enjoy doing, is traveling to different places for films?
I mean, yeah, look, I that would always be like a real big bonus, right? Like, come on, hey, we're doing this film and it's set in, I don't know, wherever, the Bahamas, and you're like, yes, this is amazing. We get to go away and have an adventure. But for the most part, for me, I remember I've done lots of things that have been set in certain places. Like, I did something that was set in Italy, but we shot in this place in the UK called Watford. It's like so grim, but they just doubled it because most of it was an interior. So you always want to get that job where you're going to go to somewhere cool, but a lot of the time it's not actually shot in that location itself, right?
Understood. Yeah, there's a short film that I'm working on. It's not going to be next year, the year after, but it's going to be shot in the UK because the two actors that we're working with happen to be British as well. And their agents say it would just be less expensive to film them in the UK because they don't have visas. So it would just be less to film it in the UK. So it's going to be like a weekend in the UK.
Yeah, that's tough because it's hard then, especially like I know a lot of people, they crew up, within the country and get the actors. But I mean, yeah.
Same with Canada because I have Canadian connections as well, and that's what their agents and crew members were like. They're like, it's just best to film it in Canada, and Canada is really nice too.
Yeah, I want to go more. I need to. I must. You look me up when you come to the UK, and I should be the same when I come to Canada.
You got it. And it's funny because in Ohio and Canada, there's one thing they actually share in common. So we have this. Well, we don't have an ocean like Florida, but we have this lake called Lake Erie. And around that lake, we have Marblehead, we have Sandusky, we have Port Clinton, and then there's this island in the middle. There's two islands in the middle. There's Kelly's Island and there's Put Bay. And on the other side of Kelly's Island is Ontario, Canada.
Yeah, there's two islands in the middle.
Yes. So like on this side, it's Ohio, and then on this side it's Canada, but then there's like an island like smack down in the middle.
Okay. What's that one called?
Kelly's Island. There's actually two islands. There's Kelly's Island and there's Put in Bay.
Why the places in Canada just sound so much nicer than the places in UK? Honestly, they've just got such cool names. Like, there's a place that I went to for work recently in the UK called Pratt's Bottom. And I'm like, who called a place that? You know, your places just sound so much nicer.
But yeah, and they're very much alike. I mean, it's the same architecture. It's the same restaurants, museums. They have like many movie theaters. The ones on the side of Lake Erie in Ontario, they're like mini film festival style movie theaters. I mean, yes, we still have regular theaters as like regular movies that they show, but most of them are all like little indie films.
Indeed, that's great. That's cool. I'd love that.
That's really good because we need more recognizable for indie films than so much those big budget films that Disney does.
Yeah.
And a few years ago, speaking of indie films, a few years ago, you did a recreation of Cinderella. Me and my parents got to watch it on Christmas Day that year on our big projector and screen. And I remember you were in the production, and I just remember thinking that, okay, if there's ever a 1970s film, like a film that takes place in the 1970s, you would be perfect for playing a character in that time era.
That's cool. Do you know, so a couple of things that are really interesting about that is when you shoot these things, it's actually really cool when someone over the other half of the world says, we saw this thing, because you hope it's going to reach an audience, but you always think, is it going to reach an audience? So I'm so happy that you said that. But it's quite funny because at the moment, somehow I've been doing a lot more theatre this year. Theatre was like my first love that I moved away from for a little while, but I'm actually going on tour in like just less than 2 weeks, doing a play that is set in the 70s. Like it's an Alan Ayckbourn play called Table Manners, and it's really cool getting to wear like the 70s clothes and stuff. And weirdly, I am like, yeah, I feel comfortable in this era.
If there was a movie or a play with a specific time period, what would your dream be to era?
You know, I would say like that kind of 50s, like, you know, in Back to the Future or 60s when they go back.
Yes.
And like, yeah, I would I like, for me, I guess more than anything, it's like a fashion thing. I love that silhouette, you know, like if that stuff were in fashion now, I would wear it all day long. I love it.
For me, it'd be the 80s.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Even though I'm not from that era, I mean, it would be the 80s.
Why?
More so the pop culture. Like, I've always loved the nostalgic. Like, I mean, even that films that come out today that take place in the 80s, like Stranger Things. I mean, Stranger Things, there was a lot of callback to the 80s. And there was actually a movie that takes place in the 80s, and they made it look like it came out in the 80s. I wanted to see it, but then I couldn't because it was filled with massive gore, and I have a very weak stomach when it comes to massive gore. Like, I can't watch anything that has massive gore, and that was the sequel to X. It was called Maxine.
Oh, nice! I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I mean, it looked entertaining, but then I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have to pass once I read how massive it was.
I'm kind of the same with that as well. You know, I do a lot of stuff. No, but I just did I did a play that was set in the 80s as well called Dangerous Obsession. I had to wear a swimming costume for the whole play. Yeah, it was fun. But I have to say, the men's fashion in that time was not good. Like all the boxy shoulder pads and stuff. So maybe you want to, like, if you do go back to the 80s, maybe like have a little bit of influence in the fashion, because I don't think it was the one.
Although I will say the movie Challengers with Zendaya, even though it takes place modern day, it came out modern day, it does have a 1980s vibe.
That's true. Yeah, I see that. And the music was just epic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dangerous Obsession, I've got a quick question about that. What was it about? Because I'm curious.
Okay. So not a lot of people know this play. So it's a thriller. It begins with my character, Sally, who is sunbathing in her garden. She has a big, beautiful house. She's married to a man called Mark Driscoll. and this strange man turns up, like walking around the conservatory, almost like peering in, and she sees him and she's like, who the hell are you? I'm not interested. Go away, go away. And he says, no, we know each other. We met at this conference years ago. And eventually she's like, oh, yes, of course. But she was drunk, so she didn't notice. So she lets him in, and gradually the audience see it. But me and my husband's coming by that point, don't see. He's actually locked us into our own conservatory. And at the end of Act 1, he kind of comes up. We sort of tried to get rid of him, and he pulls out a gun from his bag.
Oh, jeez.
And so you're like, oh, God, this man isn't just a bit weird. He's actually a real threat. Act 2 opens, and I won't give away everything, but he begins to interrogate them because he reveals that his wife had died in a car accident recently. I think it was like 4 weeks ago. And he begins to ask all these questions about Mark and Sally's marriage. And what comes out of like their married life and their situationship is just so many big reveals. There's so many twists and turns, and you're thinking, are they going to get out of this alive? Does he want to kill them? What does he want from them? And it's just brilliant. Like we had like the audience were gasping. They were like, some people would like laugh with like at that really awkward moments, just because I think that's a human reaction, right? That's a human response when we're so kind of shocked. But it was just such an epic journey. Like, I think they should make it into a film. If you ever get the chance to read the play Dangerous Obsession, it's really great
make
story.
a great film.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Right? Yeah, really epic. Check it out.
It from how you were telling the story, it almost sounds like, it almost sounds like X, like the film X was.
Right. Right, that kind of twisty, like, I'm not sure, you're sort of on the edge of your seat all the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, except X took place in the 70s.
Well.
I mean, close enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But if you haven't seen X, definitely get a chance to watch it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need some new film lists at the moment, actually. I've got through most of the ones that I've been writing down over the years, but yeah.
Whatever you do, don't watch the prequel Pearl. I couldn't watch it for good reason, but don't watch Pearl. Yeah. Sorry, Mia.
Sorry, nothing personal.
And so what was the biggest inspiration for going into acting?
Okay, so I guess, was it an inspiration? I don't know. I was in year 4, so what would I have been? I guess like 10 years old, 11 years old. And we had this company come around to our school, like a theatre and education thing. I don't know if you guys do it in Canada, where actors come around to schools and like put on plays and like get the kids involved in stuff just to educate for theatre. It's a great idea. And they were doing a Midsummer Night's Dream, and they were like choosing people to be a part of the play. And when I was little, I was super chunky. I'm very small. I'm very little. I'm like very short. But I had a lot of weight, a lot of puppy weight. And I wore these thick glasses. My eyesight's really bad. I don't wear glasses because I haven't got a nose, so they won't stay on my nose. Mm-hmm. So I wear contacts. But my eyesight is like so bad. And I had these little Mickey Mouse glasses, and I was super chubby and chunky. And I was so desperate to play the role of Hermia. And I didn't get picked. I just got looked over. And I remember being so sad because I was like, I want to do it. And I went home to my mum that night after school, and I said, Mum, I want to be an actor. I want to play Hermia. She said, okay, well, let's get you signed up to some classes and things. So I started going up to these classes and these amateur dramatics groups, and I started to like get really involved, and basically my social life just got like pushed out. I was like, I don't care, I just want to do this. Then I just found singing, and I found a real love for singing as well. So my main channel through to the acting world was actually, I know it's the same, it was musical theatre, but I approached musical theatre from the concept of you only sing when speaking isn't enough anymore. It's a whole other realm to be able to, feel, to communicate how you're feeling, express how you're feeling. So yeah, and literally ever since that day, from when I was like 11, 12 years old, I just never stopped. There was no question or anything. That was just what I wanted to do and what I was going for.
Brilliant. I definitely love that story. I could definitely relate to that story.
Oh, you can?
Yeah. I was the same way when I was in theater. I mean, I don't act anymore, but when I was in theater, I was that same way.
Right. And
Yeah.
you just sort of get, yeah. And look, it shouldn't matter, right? You know, and I believe that the industry is becoming much more diverse and open. It's not just about that anymore. But I think as well, I was probably much more introverted than I realized, but there was probably a real extrovert inside me that was just desperate to get out, you know?
Fully understood. And before we move on to the next question, quick question: did you originally think I was Canadian?
I mean, yeah, because you said you're from Canada, but
I'm sorry to say this out loud, but I'm actually not from Canada. I'm from Ohio. I live in
Oh, I
Ohio,
see.
but
Okay,
Canada's not far from Ohio.
I understand. I
Yeah.
understand.
Sorry to confuse you.
Oh, that's all right. I'm easily confused. I'm not very smart.
Yeah. It gets confused because even we have Canadians that live in Ohio and visit Ohio all the time, so it gets confusing.
I see. I see.
Yeah, but hey, I'm very honored to be Canadian. That you thought
Oh,
I was
you are.
Canadian. Yeah.
It's just me being daft.
Speaking of, okay, is like do trees like does fall come early in the UK or does it come later?
Oh, the seasons are so messed up right now. I don't even know. So, I mean, we didn't really get much of a summer this year. We've had a couple of days late, and we've been starting to get those Indian summers. So, like, yeah, well, it'll probably be. I'm hope. Last year, I think it was warm till like the end of September, and we started to see fall in like, or autumn as we call it, in October.
Nice. And what is the biggest advice you would pass on to folks that want to go into acting?
Okay. Really simple things, right? So nothing sort of wafty or airy, but simply turn up on time, right? If you're on time, you're late. It's nothing worse than wasting people's time. So always respect people's time and be on time. It sounds like a really simple thing, but you would be amazed how easy it is and how often people are late. Be on time and always be nice. Just be nice. You will have the best time. You will do your best work. People will be good to you. Just be nice. I know that sounds really simple and lame, but actually I think a lot of the time when like stakes are high and pressures are high, we forget. And I think it's the most important thing to remember.
Understood. And we are coming down to the end of the interview, and there's two famous questions in the interview. My mom wants to know: do you happen to have a favorite board game or card game?
That's a great question. Yeah, I quite like so I can't bear Monopoly because my sister made me play it as a kid and made me play it for hours and hours, and I'd always lose and I'd cry when she said she wanted to say it. But there's an old game called Cranium where it's got like 4 different components. So like you roll the dice. Do you know it?
Yes.
Yeah, Cranium. I think it's great because it's got something for everyone. It never gets boring or repetitive. It's just you're like, yes, I've got the dough, I've got the modeling dough, and you get really excited. Yeah. That one.
Yeah, we used to have a carnival cranium themed game. We don't have it anymore, but we had carnival. We had a cranium game where it would be like this large speaker, and you press the button, and it would like tell you which plates to move to. You just have to lay the plates down on the floor, and you'd be walking to different plates.
Oh, I love that.
It was a preschool game. It was that era.
Great.
Yeah, it was fun. And for the famous question, do you happen to have a favorite retro product? And it could be from any time period.
Gosh. I had one of those girl talk things. Do you know what I mean? I think the guy had one in Home Alone. It was like one of those things, and he played back the
Yes.
yeah. But mine was like bright pink, and yeah, I used that, and it would like change you could like change the voices on it and stuff. And I still, when you go through old stuff and you like give away old stuff, I still cannot get rid of that because it's just, yeah, I just feel like it's so, I don't know, I just can't throw it out.
There are certain things you can't get rid of.
So true.
Yeah, especially when it's memories from childhood. It's like that stays with you forever. That's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work. It's got no batteries in it, and even if it did, it wouldn't work. But I don't care. It's staying.
Yeah, and I've got a quick question. If the house was on fire, would that be the thing that you would make sure comes out? Like, because people say like if the house was burned down, that's what's coming with me.
Do you know what? It would be my childhood teddy bear, actually, I think.
Me too. Both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm such a child, but yeah, it would be.
It's a memory. It forever stays with you. And this is actually one of the Halloween specials of this episode. And for this special Halloween episode, is there like a specific Halloween memory or Halloween movie that you really enjoy the most?
The Halloween memory that I enjoyed the most. I went to Disney World with a friend, and we went to go and do like the trick or treating thing, the not so scary Halloween, which suits me, right? Because I'm all right with like Halloween, but it's too scary. I'm a wimp, and we couldn't find any costumes. So we ran to Target, and all we could find was a strawberry and a pineapple. So we dressed up as a strawberry and a pineapple. I was a strawberry. And we just like basically, I'll be honest, we had a couple of drinks, and then we went to Splash Mountain. We got stuck for over an hour, dressed as a strawberry and a pineapple when we were basically drinking. Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite Halloween movies.
That's
Oh,
funny.
say that, yeah.
Yeah, you could say that. You're allowed to tell stories. I mean, you could even swear as well. I mean, most of it's gonna get bleeped out anyway.
Oh, good, because I've been on my best behavior, but I have a real potty mouth.
Yeah.
So,
Like, do you try hard not to like say it in front of someone just in case if you're gonna offend the other person, or do they just not care by this point?
I mean, most people, I wouldn't think twice about it. I always think with swearing, like as long as you're not saying you are a then
Yeah.
it's kind of okay. And as Brits, we swear very casually, like and I mean, and some really strong words as well. But they can almost be used as a term of endearment in a way when you know someone well enough. You can say, "Oh, you cheeky old," and it's sort of, yeah.
I was watching a British show the other day. One of my favorite. My Nana's British, so that's how I get to know all these British TV shows. Vicar Dibley is one of my favorite BB shows of all time, and I was rewatching some episodes the other day, and I just never picked up how much UK swearing there was, and I was like, "Wait, I don't remember any of this from when I was a kid."
It's crazy. Have you seen Wicked Little Letters?
Yes.
Mate, I mean that is just what I watched it recently, and Olivia Colman is my inspiration, my idol, just like everything, that woman. I like, just love her so much. But her performance in that, and when the end bit where she swore like that, I was like, it can be so funny when used correctly. Swearing is wonderful.
Yeah, it's a stress reliever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I always have that fear, like if something happens and a swear word comes out, like there's gonna be a kid walking by and it accidentally comes out in front of the kid. That's my biggest fear the most. But I mean, most kids nowadays, more kids swear nowadays than they did back then, so I don't think it's gonna be a problem. But still, you don't want to get
No, I did a shoot once where there was a kid, and there was sort of two of us adults like talking over the kid, and one of us called the kid something really quite bad, like the worst of the worst that you could think. And I remember they did that single, so they actually took out the kid so we could like not say it in front of him. But I was like, I don't think he'd care. But
when Billy Bob Thornton was shooting Bad Santa, the first one especially, like of course throughout the movie it's just F-bomb throughout the whole movie, but whenever the kids were nearby, he would keep apologizing because he didn't like swearing in front of the kids.
Boy, that's so funny.
Yeah. Hey, I'm trying to do better. I'm trying to do better.
Yeah.
And do you happen to have a favorite curse word?
Yes.
You're allowed to say it.
Am I? It's the worst.
It's gonna get bleeped out. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a stress reliever.
Right. I some people love it, some people hate it, but I think that the word is the best words in vocabulary. It's amazing. You can use it affectionately. You can use it to really express that you're angry at someone and someone has upset you. It's versatile. It's beautiful. I love the plosives on each end of it. I just think it's a rounded, wonderful swear word.
Understood. Yes, I've seen Shaun of the Dead too many times. I know exactly where you're going.
Exactly.
Also, great Halloween movie.
So true. I watched that. Like, that's one of those ones that, like, when I'm not sure what to watch, I'm like, oh, I'll put on this again. This is great because you know it will scratch the itch, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you love Shaun of the Dead, I have a book. Retro Podcast has a book coming out in a few months. Actually, no, 3 months. Called Night at North Pole, and it's Santa and Krampus, and they have to fight werewolf reindeer. It's a horror comedy, but the way how Santa and Krampus are designed, they're like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. That's
Love
when I
that.
illustrated them. That's who I kind of modeled it after.
Well, congratulations. I'll look out for it.
Lucy, thank you again for joining today's episode, and wish you best of luck on your acting career.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Wishing you all the best for yours and your business as well.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Spotify and follow us on Instagram. See you next week.